Hello students, today's lesson is going to be very practical with a lot of exercises for you, which are going to enhance your attacking and initiative developing skills. In total, we'll look at fragments of two games. One was played by me and the other by a grandmaster. Take a look at the position in front of you. White is clearly better. First of all, the bishop on d7 is a bad piece. Second of all, the knight on g6 is awkwardly placed. It can be taken at any moment with the damage in the opponent's pawn structure. However, white is waiting for the right opportunity to do that. Also, black played the pawn move to f6, which weakens the pawn structure. We could also identify the king, which for this particular moment is still in the center. For this reason, white decided, or I have decided because it's my game, to try and open up the center so that we could attack the black's king. I first thought about e4, but then I noticed that after takes, I'm unable to take with the knight as the queens are getting exchanged here, and I will end up in the endgame with an isolated pawn. That's not what I want. On the other hand, what I could have tried is taking here with the bishop, subsequently prepare the pawn break to d5, and try to open up the center this way. Instead in the game, I played the move queen to c2, and right now, black is unable to play knight to b4, as I'm threatening to take the knight on g6 with a check. A smart move for black perhaps would have been to play f5, that closes down the center, and against that, I would have continued with my other advantages. I still have a bad piece to play against, my dream is to get an endgame against that, I still have better pawn structure as the e6 and e5 are weaknesses. Instead, our opponent played the move king to f7 in order to secure the knight. It perhaps not looks as awful from the first glance. The rook can move somewhere to like e8, d8 or c8, and at the right moment, if there is no longer a threat of taking that knight, the king could quickly go to g8, and black would even pretend that they have castled in this game. I first have to deal with this fork, and so white played the move a3. After that, black played b5. White has everything prepared for the dream move, e4. Our opponent played rook a to c8, pawn takes d5, pawn takes d5. And this is a good time to stop and give you an exercise. I'm pretty sure that there are more than one move that is good. However, you could try and guess the move that I played, which attempts to develop the initiative for the white pieces. I started with queen to b3, immediate pressure against the pawn on d5. Our opponent played the move bishop to e6, and here I'm going to give you another exercise, how to continue the initiative for the white pieces. And white goes f4. My intention is to go to f5 with a fork. Remember that the bishop cannot run away, as I'm going to take the pawn on d5. Here, our opponent played f5, and I would like to give you another exercise. What would you play here with the white pieces? White played g4. The idea is to still attack f5, and notice that black is unable to take this seemingly free pawn, because then white is able to play f5 and fork the bishop and the knight of blacks. Instead, in the game, we had knight to e7 to overprotect f5. White takes on f5, knight takes f5, bishop takes, and here it's simply possible perhaps to take on d5. I just decided to go knight g3, bishop e6, f5, and black resigned as everything is collapsing. For example, in order to not to lose the bishop, black probably needs to play something like bishop d7, then white could play queen takes d5, and you notice that pieces are simply dropping, black's king is still weak, and white is winning the game. So this is a beautiful example of how things can go very wrong when you have the king in the center and you allow to open up the position. Let's move to another example. This game with the white pieces was played by Lithuanian Grandmaster Tomas Laurušas. His rating at the time was 2561 and his opponent was 2378. It was played in the last chess Olympiad. In this position, white is leading the development. You could notice that the black's knight is on a7 somewhat passive right now, and the bishop on c8 is also not developed. White wants to take this opportunity and try to open up the position in order to increase the interactions with his own pieces and opponent's pieces. That almost always increases the chance of a tactic for the side that has more active army, and that's why they are initiating the openness of the position. How could white prepare that over here? Please pause the video and think for the white pieces. How can we prepare opening up the position? White in this position played knight to d2 in order to prepare this break e4, which attacks the so-called hook on d5. That's advanced pawn of opponents that we could take advantage of in order to open up the position. If you have seen my last video, then you know what I'm talking about, the concept of the so-called hook. In the game, black played pawn to c6, white strikes with e4 and also creates a threat of taking on d5. Black took on e4. Now we took with a more passive knight. A lot of the times my students ask which piece to take with. One of the principles that we could use in a lot of positions is to take with the worst piece, as now we're centralizing and making our worst piece better. And I think out of the three minor pieces, the knight on d2 was least active. In the game, black took on e4, white takes on e4, and black played the move knight to b5, attacking the pawn on d4. What do you think white played? Did white defend the pawn on d4, or they tried to counterattack? Try to guess the next white's move. Of course, they didn't defend. They play rook fe1, which creates a threat of knight f6, and discoveries against the black's queen and the rook. So black has no time to take on d4. Now, black played bishop to e6. Do you think white defended the pawn on d4, or they did something more active? Once again, white played knight to c5, keeping up the initiative. Right now, we're building up the pressure on e6, as well as the knight is touching this weakness on b7. In this position, black played rook a d8, and now here comes the moment of the game. Please pause the video, and even if you're an advanced player, I would like you to take a deep think here and give yourself some time in order to calculate out the best move for the white pieces. He played b5, an exclamation mark. Finally, white is able to open up the position. Notice how there is a pin along the e file, so the bishop is not really attacking the pawn. Black takes on d5, and another exclamation mark move by white, a4. Before they're doing anything with the knight to e6 and invading with the rook to c7, they're kicking away the black's knight from an active square on b5. Only a very, very experienced players can notice the small moves that make a huge difference in the game. Once the black's knight moves away, finally now they take on e6. Black took on e6, and white is able to infiltrate with rook to c7. Deadly initiative coming up by white. Black played queen f6, and now we have a winning endgame with a lot of weaknesses for the black's pieces. Bishop here is definitely better than the knight, and white soon was able to collect some material. Let's see just a few moves how that happened, and went on to win a brilliant game. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to my channel. You can also consider hiring me as your personal online chess coach. My contacts are on the right. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.